Well, let's do a happy story. Let's do something that really thrills me and cheers me up. Now, of course, we know we must never, ever criticise Meghan and Harry. That's a terrible mistake. And if you're Jeremy Clarkson and you write something rude about them in the Sun newspaper, even when you've apologised, you find announced last night that he will not be doing, after the next one, any more series of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. No. If you criticise this couple, you get in trouble, because they seem to have quite deep support in the liberal media establishment. But anybody who watches this show regularly or listens to it will know I think their behaviour has been absolutely disrespectful to our late Queen and despicable towards his own brother and indeed his father, who of course is now King Charles III. They moaned like crazy, didn't they, about being put into Nottingham Cottage after they were first married. It was so small. Oh, American stars coming to visit them couldn't believe the terrible conditions they were being forced to live in. Oprah Winfrey said, it's so small. Gosh, I'm sure you're all really pitying them living there. But the Queen came to the rescue and gave them Frogmore Cottage. Now, Frogmore Cottage are 5 houses knocked into one, and £2.4 million was spent for the Duke and Duchess of Suffolk to have it decorated to their heart's desire. So really, they've been having their cake and eating it, because they've been living on the west coast of America, making vast amounts of money from the book and from Netflix and everything else, slagging off the royal family, the Commonwealth, virtually everything about our country, but able, at will, to come back to Frogmore Cottage. Well, the King has acted, and I don't always agree with everything the King says, as you know, but he's kicked them out. He wants the keys back. Yes, they will not have Frogmore Cottage anymore, and it will go to Andrew, who, for him, and it must be horrible for him, really, to have to leave a 30-room home, but hey, he's going to go into Frogmore Cottage. Well, maybe I'm being a bit light-hearted about this, because I do think, actually, there are deeper, perhaps even constitutional consequences from this. And I'm joined by Rafe, Heydel-Mankoo, royal commentator and GB News favourite. Rafe, some people have suggested that this is revenge coming from King Charles. If it is revenge, I have to say, I rather like it.
Yes, well, about time, I'm sure many will say. And I'm sure that, cries of finally could be heard ricocheting around the kingdom, as the British public heard about the King's decisive decision, I should say, to give the Duke and Duchess of Duplicity their final just desserts and to evict them. The King's been extraordinarily patient and tolerant. I think we can all agree. And, much like a good Christian monarch would, I think he was hoping that there would be a prodigal son moment where his wayward son would return. But, after all the temper tantrums we've seen from this crybaby and his delusional drama queen of a wife, it appears that it was the publication of Spare, Harry's vulgar memoir, that issued these vile attacks on Queen Camilla. That was the final straw for His Majesty. And the thing is, the King and the royal family aren't allowed to actually rebut or respond to any of this vile nonsense from Sussex. What the King has done here, actually, I was thinking about it, is sort of the equivalent of a government declaring a diplomat persona non grata. When an ambassador is declared persona non grata, they lose their residence and they lose their privileges and they have to leave the nation. And that's essentially what the King has done to Prince Harry, because this is actually quite a masterstroke. The practical reality is that he's not only evicted them from Frogmore, by losing Frogmore, they've actually lost their royal roles, which we'll discuss constitutionally, and essentially potentially been evicted from Britain. Because if you lose Frogmore, Harry's now lost his domicile status in the UK. And what that means constitutionally is that he can no longer be a Counsellor of State. And a Counsellor of State is a very important constitutional role, which means when the sovereign, the King currently, is incapacitated or abroad, there are 4 senior royals who can fulfil certain functions of the King. And Prince Harry has been one of those Counsellors of State. But without any UK domicile, he's been very publicly and unceremoniously stripped of that. But also, the other thing is, by losing Frogmore, he's now lost the Windsor Castle Estate's Royal Protection Police officers and security detail, which means that he now feels that his only safe space in the UK has been denied him. And we've heard them say repeatedly, and it's been reportedly said by his supporters like Omid Scobie over the past couple of days that they now may limit their number of trips to the UK if they would actually come to the coronation, we'll see. So by losing Frogmore, they've lost their royal role and potentially they've been evicted from Britain too.